Hello. I want to take a few moments to address the recent NBC News article. Abuse of any kind has no place in the Assemblies of God. Abuse against minors is especially reprehensible and unconscionable. But the report published by NBC News is profoundly disappointing because it's peppered with misleading information. The Assemblies of God grieves with anyone who's been hurt by the actions of an abuser. One instance of abuse is too many. And the General Council of the Assemblies of God is committed to child safety and has an established track record of leadership in this area. So first off, let me be clear. A position of zero tolerance for credentialed ministers guilty of sexual misconduct against a minor has been in place for decades.
For NBC to suggest that the General Council does not require background checks, screening for credentialed ministers, or that we don't follow mandatory reporting is absolutely false. Background checks and verified references are an established part of our credential process. The General Council also voluntarily considers itself a mandatory reporter, even when it is not required to by law.
And by way of example, in the case of Tony Waller, the NBC report implies no action was taken by the Assemblies of God officials. However, when the District Council and General Council first became aware of his actions in 2015, he was promptly reported to state authorities, investigated, and dismissed per established processes. In another example, Sean Butler is listed in the article as a minister, but he was never a credentialed minister with the Assemblies of God. The article also cites the use of Galatians 6:1 in a restoration manual as a way to imply that the General Council endorses the restoration or reinstatement of child sex offenders to ministry. This is false once again. No minister may obtain or retain credentials with the Assemblies of God if they've been found guilty of sexual misconduct with a minor.
NBC News further leads readers to believe that restoration or reinstatement for sexual misconduct involving a minor was only barred as recently as 2021. The article says, and I quote, "The Restoration Handbook, updated in 2021, bars reinstating pastors who sexually abuse children," end of quote. This, again, is clearly misleading. The manual is routinely updated and was in 2021, but again, the policy of zero tolerance had been in place for decades, which we previously reported to NBC.
I think it's important to emphasize that this NBC report goes back through 50 years of history. During that same time period, the General Council has been at the leading edge of child safety policies as the standards of care have advanced in culture with the advent of new information, technology, and other resources. While only the credentialing of ministers is in the purview of the General Council, we have produced a wealth of resources over the span of these decades to aid churches within the Assemblies of God and other denominations to protect minors. General Presbytery, General Council meetings have regularly included a segment on child protection and best practices and resources for decades, urging all churches, which are autonomous based on our scriptural beliefs on church polity, to adopt stringent standards to provide a safe and nurturing environment for children to hear the gospel.
That brings us to the NBC report of the discussion on the floor at the 2021 General Council. It is absurd to think that anyone at 2021 General Council was opposed to child safety. The issue was that the bylaw was not the place for such a policy. Our polity is structured in such a way that makes it impossible for the General Council to give oversight to the local assembly. There was already a process in place to address allegations related to credentialed ministers. In addition, in that meeting, resources were shared to promote child safety practices, which are being added to on a regular basis.
So I want to assure you that our commitment to keeping children safe, as evidenced in these best practices, resources, presentations, and our own national office policies, has been, is, and will remain a major priority.